expo, just like we did last year, are going to be, discounted tremendously. We do a
absolutely.
lot of stuff there, but we're bringing a huge.
I brought the strips from you this year, and they were outstanding. They withstood some 50 to 60 mile an hour winds out here, but they were outstanding, man. You've got a heck of a product there.
Thank you. I'm proud of them. We've done a few revisions, and I've settled in. We tried to play around with a different vendor, and that's what got us in trouble going to Expo. Is I had a different vendor sending me the material, and their samples looked great. Everything was perfect. But when I got the final product, we had to reject it. It was just horrible. So we're staying with the same vendor that we've been using from the beginning, and just trying to bargain that and try to get a little better break on it. We actually have processed close to 40,000 pounds of plastic for those strips, which is just ungodly. And I can tell them, and I don't know.
That's a lot of crazy Christmas people right there.
Whoo! And you ain't lying. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what Dan Baldwin did with them, with Lightorama. We talked, and he ordered 15,000 strips. I don't know what he did with them. I don't know if he's either using them for his commercial stuff, or if he gave them to employees, or what in the world he's doing with them, because they didn't turn up on his site for sale. And I have no idea what he did with them, but that was kind of funny.
That was the employee's bonus for the month.
Maybe so. We've had a lot of vendors, and we're trying to, I'm still on the fence about that. I've got a lot of vendors that want to work with us and want to try to buy the stuff at wholesale, but I just don't have that much of a margin to be able to deal with it. Todd with DIY LED Express is a friend of mine, and I've known Todd for many years. And, he gets some of my products. We help him out with the P10s because he orders all the electronics and the panels and all that kind of stuff. And so we felt it was a good fit for him, and we make the couple other items that we custom make for him. And that's a pretty good relationship we have with Todd and those guys. But we've had a dozen plus different vendors that want us to make stuff for them, and it's just like, guys, there's not enough wiggle room here. It's just we're keeping everything super low, and the beauty of that is it keeps certain people from copying things. Because if it's not profitable to him, he doesn't want to touch it. And so that's what we're attacking. And it works. We're happy. Everybody makes a little money and keeps my competition from copying some things. So,
James, this is Sean. Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Sure.
I have to leave and go down to band practice, but I just dialed in to pass a couple things on for a couple minutes.
No. Sean can't talk. No.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up there, Sean. I can't take it there. There we go.
Yep, get that 3.5 minute board. Got it. For this next year, I'm going to be putting a poll up, asking everyone to vote on the things they'd like to see added to X-Lights. Among the developers, we've already come up with a list of nearly 100 items. The people from Australia have sent another 50. So watch for that poll. It'll be coming up probably this week. And the stuff you want to see in X-Lights will, we're going to solicit your input. We reserve the editorial right not to input or implement what you ask for. But we do listen. Usually we develop stuff first for our show, and then if it coincides, it helps you. The second item is I'm getting ready to commit to the Las Vegas 2-day seminar for X-Lights. I'm going to put up a poll for that also. It's going to be about $150 to $200. The price that goes down, the more people who sign up. I'll post that information out. Thirdly, I still have my show up, and it's running. I had 3 cars in front of my house tonight. I don't want to hear from Dave Pitts and his comment about my show will run until summer. Dave is supposed to come and photograph my show with his super duper DJI Phantom 3. But we'll see if that takes till summer to get that done too. And I'm very excited about the new boards that Dave has developed because it's going to allow a sea level change for me. I can get rid of all the SSCs and programming channels. So to Dave, I think it's going to be awesome, the boards. I think that was the 3 items I wanted to pass out. Is there anything you guys want to know about X-Lights?
Hey, Sean, do you know what month and date or what weekend in Vegas that will be roughly, and where at what?
March 19th and 20th, and it'll be at the Palace. Palace. I'll post the details later tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Some of the venues there wanted $6,000 per day.
Oh my
gosh! Room. Wow. And they were talking to me like they could give me a breakdown to $4,000 if I would commit to buying food.
Wow.
The place that I'm looking at has a free shuttle from their hotel to the Strip. They also have a free shuttle to the airport. And the rooms are $120 a night. It's a 3 to 3.5 star hotel. Gambling and smoking on the first floor, and all the conference rooms on the second floor are smoke free. I'm not a smoker. One thing I don't like about Vegas is the smell of smoke.
Yeah.
So looks like it's a go out. You'll hear about it this week that we will be doing it. And I'm going to ask people if they would like a third day that focuses only on the Pi player. This is not the theory of the Pi player, but how to set it up. And it would include how to do whole house projection. We'd actually go through setting up 2 projectors, doing the masking, and show how it works and setting it up. The extra day would be an additional $50. Anyway, all that information will come up in this next week. What do you guys want to see in X-Lights? And do you want to come to this 2-day intense seminar that's just X-Lights and Pi player?
Right. That's awesome.
Any other questions? And James, I like your stuff too. I got some strips from Dave Pitt. We did a trade of services. And I got some of your strips. They were good.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you like them. I like X-Lights too. So. I'm actually, I'm converting over to X-Lights. I haven't used X-Lights in the past. I did use it at the expo, and only because I was involved with the guys in Vixen 3 from the very beginning. But it's unfortunate. I just don't think it's going where I guess I would like to see it go. And, we helped them out with a lot of the stress testing on it, trying to help get some of the overhead off of the CPU when they were doing this stuff. And because, my display's got 60,000 outputs on it, and it kills Vixen. Of course, my other question is, would I ever be able to salvage any of my X-Lights, not X-Lights, but Vixen 3 sequences and bring them into X-Lights?
Not unless they produce their sequence in an XML form that we could then create as part of our convert.
Yeah.
I've had this discussion with them a couple of years ago. I also told them is there a Vixen 3 person on the call? Is John Chuchalon?
I don't believe he is.
Well, anyway, I told them that I think that they got a really good interface, really nice, but the core architecture they have doesn't scale. And I think they're just going to have to rewrite the core part of their engine. By the way, I think LSP suffers from the same thing. And remember, our core came from Matt Brown. He built the core that allowed us to scale 4 years ago. And now he's off on Lore. But Lore set rules about what he could do and what he couldn't do and fit within their architecture. For instance, the reason X-Lights runs on Mac and Linux and Windows is because of Matt. Because some people asked for that. But he went to Lore. They're not interested because they'd have to change their architecture stack in making a Lore software product that runs Linux and Mac. They're just Windows only. And my belief about sequencers is same thing with controller cards. I'm not a religious convert to the Falcon boards. Dave is one of my very best friends, and I tell people use a 682 or use PixLike. I personally think that the Falcon board is twice the board of any other board. So truth in advertising, I'm Dave's friend. I think the Falcon board is the best board, but you spend a lot of time learning how to use these boards. You know, if you have a Pixelite Alpha Pix E682, you spend a lot of time to finally know how to configure them and using them. So that's a lot of time you have to relearn when you switch. The only thing I would tell people about switching to the Falcon board, what other controller has has much development in the last 2 years? Nobody. The amount of releases Dave has done, the amount of support he gives all these team viewer calls to people. So, you know, I'm biased because I really like his board, but if someone's using a 682 or another board, if someone's using HLS or using LSP or using Lore or Vixen 3, I'm not going to try to force you to switch. In fact, we've probably in Xlite spent more time to make our software be compatible with everybody else than anybody. There is no other sequencer that tries to load in an Xlite's file. Nobody. We had to convert from Xlites to make it work with everybody else. Nobody. No other sequencer's done that same work to work with us. So it's kind of one-sided, but we did it because we think it's good for the community, and that's the way it is.
Sean,
right. Any other
real quick question? And this is, has LSP for the new rewrite reached out to you at all for any kind of import-export?
No.
That's all I need to know.
Is that a joke question?
That's all I need to know.
I tried to reach out to LSP 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And have never heard from them. I've reached out a couple of times. I had to reverse engineer their files because they would not. First Dave Johnson, and then the following guys, they wouldn't talk. And I go, okay, I'll do the best I can.
Yeah.
No, they haven't. They have not reached out to us.
That's because LSP developers are in some hidden bunker underneath some mountain in Colorado.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. All it would have taken was some open dialogue, and yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're done. They're done.
They're in the same ones with animated lighting.
Yeah.
And, you know, they arranged some deal where their two developers were going to share in the profits. So rather than pay them, they would share when they sell stuff. They formed a corporation, and at least this is what I understood. That's true. These guys could be getting discouraged because a couple of years without coming out with the software, they're losing market share.
Yeah.
And we're not out trying to compete with either Vixen 3 or LSP. We're just working on a sequencer for ourselves, and we're highly integrated with Falcon controllers. Like Falcon controller software puts out absolute channel addressing. It's the only controller that does that, which matches the way Xlites does it. No other controller has come out and said, yeah, we'll make the same kind of addressing mode, only Dave's stuff. And then, of course, the Pi player, which Dave created 3 years ago, and Captain Murdoch took it to places Dave couldn't even have thought of. You know, the syncing of multiple Pis and all the things they have. And you may have saw the post yesterday. They now have the Pi player working on the $5 Raspberry Zero. So you get a Raspberry Zero, you can control a string of lights. There's your controller. You don't need anything else. Comes E131, put 3 or 4 of those out if you don't need a lot of lights, and you're done. It opens up a whole nother round for us. Any other questions for me? I didn't mean to jump on your line, James.
Oh, no, that's no problem, Sean. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Hey, Sean, I just want you to know that I leave my Mega Tree up all year round. It's not okay to run a show in summer. I just put tomato plants on mine.
Don't encourage him.
So I could grow tomatoes on my Mega Trees. That's what you're saying.
I have a Z tree, metal frame Mega Tree. So we just hang potted plants off it.
Sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
I have it wired for electricity and for water.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
All
can
right,
warrant just being used as planted pot hangers.
All right, gentlemen. Good luck, and I think that these meetings are a really good idea. The fact that they're getting large is excellent.
Yep.
Okay, take care, everyone. I got to head off.
All right, Sean. Thanks.
Great.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, how do you follow up a conversation after James and Sean talking, right?
Sorry. What else do you want me to make? We will. I've thought about putting a post out there, and kind of throwing it and say, hey, what do you guys want us to make next, or something like that. Of course, that's just going to encourage my buddy, but it is what it is. And maybe we just do it in something like this forum. We're game. We have no problems with coming up with new stuff. I love designing things. That's what I get to do almost every day at my normal job. And, it's a lot of fun to come back here and have a weird harebrained idea and go walk back there and go cut it out and see what happens. So, we're toying with a bunch of new stuff. Some of it's out there. Some of it's just retakes on things that are out there. And then, of course, there's some of it that's just brand new items that nobody's ever seen yet. That's just kind of tucked away in my sick little mind here. That's the best part. I love designing things. I don't know. Many of y'all know I've got an architecture background. That's what I went to school for. Now I'm more or less a big project manager for a massive architectural engineering company. And, I hate leaving that, but we're probably going to have to make that call soon. And might step away from it. As much as I love the security of it, I might just have to walk away soon. So we'll see. But anytime anybody wants something custom, we've done tons of one-off custom items. I don't have any problem shoot me an email, let me know what you want, and we'll figure some way to make it. We don't charge setup time. You don't have to pay $60 an hour for us to design something for you. So easy. It's nice being small. Do whatever we want.
Well, I'm definitely happy to see this many people in here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you invited us.
Yeah.
He does that all the time, though. This is the most I've ever seen.
Yeah. I think we've had 8 or 9 people in here maybe at a time.
It's a big increase.
How often are you gonna do these meetings, if you will?
My intention is still to keep them weekly.
Okay.
Yeah, keep them weekly from now until I might start doing, well, it's difficult to say that you're going to do it every other week when the time comes up, November or so, because sometimes people get stuck somewhere and they need help. So I hate to skip a week because then somebody might miss out on something. So I'm thinking about keeping it every week.
Right. Okay.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll have to figure out how to save it. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest with you. Jerry had sent me a Facebook. He saw I was online and sent me a Facebook message, told me about it. That's how I found out.
Yeah. David from Falcon has come in here and done a presentation before. Sean's done a presentation. Anytime you want to come in and do a presentation of products and show us your products, I'll give you the video. You can share your screen and, talk about your product.
Okay. Awesome.
Any of you muted people have questions about anything? You guys just hanging out?
I mean, is this the place to ask just kind of off the wall?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm kind of considering buying a bunch of either pixels or strips to do the roof outline this year. I'm coming from 3 Lightorama boxes and then just some pixel arches running from all from just a giant old desktop I have lying around. Does anybody actually leave their pixels up all year? You mean so they do multiple holidays, or is it kind of a no-no, or they don't last?
Well, it depends on where you're going to place them, right? So if they're under the eaves and they're protected from the sun, I think you have a better chance of buying something that's going to last longer. But if it's in direct exposure sunlight, depending on the quality of the strip or the pixel you buy, it's not going to last. So, the big question is where you're going to put them. Are you front facing towards the sun, or are you away from the sun?
I'm full sun south facing, so that would probably kill them pretty quick, I guess.
Yeah, that would cause a problem.
Yeah, strips are not going to handle that very well. Some of the pixels, the higher quality stuff, is going to last a lot longer, but then you're going to really shorten the number of years you're going to get out of them. But one of the things is that it's the wiring that cracks, and if you're leaving it in place, it may not crack as much, because you're not handling it as much, and it may last long, and you just get a discoloring to the bulb, and so you probably won't get your true whites.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe skipping around just a tad. So I have a Facebook group here in Charlotte, North Carolina that I deal with some friends that are kind of guiding me through some of the pixel conversions. I got about half saying 12 volt, half saying 5 volt.
12, 12, 12.
All right. I've got an 80-foot roof line. I mean, if I go 12, can you do it?
It depends. It depends on how many LEDs are in each pixel, and ultimately the gauge wire that connects all the pixels together. Again, a higher quality pixel is going to be a thicker wire. You're going to be able to do a longer run. If you're doing bullets, you can do a longer run versus something that has like 6 LEDs in each pixel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what do you think your longest run's going to be, Adam?
Yeah.
If you use pixels.
Can you inject power from both ends?
2 weeks.
I could do power from both ends. I don't know how that's all going to – I haven't really drawn it out. I mean, I've got 80 feet to go across probably, and if I put the controller in the middle and send a wire each in, I guess that's 40,
my longest run is about 350 pixels, and I do 12 volt, and I power inject every 100 pixels, no problems.
Yep.
All right, through every 100 pixels for 12 volts is a good rule of thumb then.
Yeah,
my longest run is 128 pixels at 3-inch spacing.
Yeah, like Daryl said, it's going to matter. It's going to matter what type of pixels you get as well. Like the pixel bulbs, you can do about 125 before you have to inject.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be the pixel bullet type Raywu store.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now realize, Adam, if you use the little 12 millimeter bullets, they don't lay flat. You'll have to buy something from James probably to keep them pointing the right direction.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm getting pushed into J channel and a bunch of other.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with J channel, but you have to put the holes in it. And I'm going to tell you, for the $2 you're going to pay James, it's well worth it.
Oh no, I'm all about it. I've never done any of it, so I got to kind of see what's what.
Right.
The nice thing with the strips though is that we'll hide the wire, right? So you're going to get an extra additional layer of UV protection. So you're going to have to worry less about wire degradation in terms of sunlight. It's more the pixel cover itself that you're going to have an issue with.
That's a good point. All right, that was kind of my questions. I haven't played with X-Lights yet. It's all Lightorama for me, but that's to do. I just bought a Pi and all that fun stuff, so that'll be coming this month.
In my opinion, the only time I would use 5 volt if I was in a situation where it was a tree and all the power and controller was under the tree, or if I was doing a matrix and everything was close by. Otherwise, it's just a pain to run extra power injection down.
People have been saying the reliability on 5 was better, and you're not burning so much extra, I guess, amperage or whatever is the difference.
True, but I don't think it's worth the difference.
Yeah, it's not a difference.
Yeah, it's not worth the headache. And then the other problem is if you're going to mix voltages, then you got to worry about, hitting 12 volt to 5 volt nodes and things of that nature. It's just not worth it. I mean, everything I run is 12 volt. I don't have any 5 volt except for some P10 stuff. So it's easy for us.
And if you've got a commitment to using a 12 volt, you can always use a buck converter somewhere and drop it down to 5 if you really have to use 5 somewhere, but you can still use 12 and everything else.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
and the people that are pro 5 volt, and there's a lot of them. Yeah, they're electrical purists or whatever. A lot of them come from Australia. But that's James, because James, you're running 60,000 nodes or some astronomical amount. Plus, you have dealt with hundreds of thousands of nodes. What do you think the reliability is of 12 volt nodes? Because I've heard everybody. I haven't had that many failures, so I'm just curious as to what your experience is.
I haven't, and I'll tell you what we normally experience is that first week of running them, we'll have our failures there. Once everything really gets burned in, it's just, typically it's stuff that the factory didn't catch, and you start seeing a little bit of failure after that first week, and then it drastically tapers off. Now I use probably 90% of my pixels came from DIY LED Express. They're all 18 gauge wire, typically 4-inch centers for my 12 millimeter nodes. I also have Pixa bulbs that are from them on my roof. That's a different beast, but typically, they work fine. There's different ways to kind of play with the power injection. I can tell you on my arches, we run 3 arches per universe, which is 150 nodes, and I don't do power injection. It's one universe. It comes from the controller. We set the controller up in the middle of the display, and it's 6 arches each way. This year, it's going to be more next year. But what we do is we use a 4-conductor wire, and we take that extra leg for the wire, and we actually put that to 12 volts as well. So I got 2 carriers for 12 volts. Now, technically, that's not supposed to work, because it's a DC product, so you should have your ground and your hot the same size because they're equally pulling the amount of power. But I can tell you, I can run them full white at 150 nodes, and they don't flicker, and they work great. The chrometries that we do now that have 20 nodes per, we run those 7 per universe, and we don't do any power injection on those either. And that's 140 nodes per universe, per output, basically. And again, with no power injection. We've started playing around with the Cat 5 cable to push the signal from the F16. And, so now we're doing some signals that are 60, 70 feet away from the controller, and we just set up a power supply in that area and just tap into it and just use the F16 to carry the data from. That worked great. Dave was telling me if we just switch over to the Cat 5 cable, because you get that ground going around your data signal to protect it, shielded it, if you will. And it works. We did some testing with both the extenders that that Corey was selling earlier this year, or last year rather. And so those work. We pushed those signals out 50, 60 feet as well. And then we turned around and Dave said, well, you really don't need it if you do this. And sure enough, you take your ground and your data signal, and it'll push it straight out to the F16 without a extender, if you will, or amplifier or whatever that rectifier was doing to it. So it works both ways. Again, I can get on the bandwagon with the F16s. The 3 displays that I'm involved with, we used 24 of them, I think, 22 of them are in the show.
Damn.
And I used tons of E682s, and we've probably got about 30 of those in the shows. But it's so much easier to be able to configure each output instead of a cluster of 4 outputs if I want to do a zigzag or something different at the controller level. You can do it in the software, especially with X-Lights. It's a lot more difficult in Vixen 3, but X-Lights, you can, software-wise, you can control that zigzag and make the 682 max out per output. But I fell in love with the F16. It's a great board for us.
It's the Cadillac.
It is. It really is. And I've played with about 3 different boards out there. And, I used to think the E682 was a Cadillac, but, now it's not the Cadillac anymore. So I think Dave did a great job coming up with it, and it satisfies all of our needs. And, it can be a little bit overwhelming, I think, because there's so many channels that it can output. But once you understand that you can do anything you want to any one of those outputs, man, it's a dream. So we found a bug in the 682s when we started doing some reverse It wouldn't let us fix the universes. It caused some problems with our universes and our outputs when we started reversing some signals, and it was because it was affecting the whole cluster and how it populated the entire universe to roll over to the next universe. So I don't know what Jim's going to do on that, but I told him about it. So who knows? Not really a problem. Unfortunately, I'm probably never going to buy another 682, as many as I have. But they're rock solid boards. You know, they're great boards, and they'll work until eventually we swap them out or do something different with the display. But I'm good with the Falcon board now. So.
Yeah, you know, out of the 1,600 nodes I got from you that was from the LED Express, I had 0 failures this year. 0. Not one of them bad.
I had one. That was it. That was one for the whole season.
Mm-hmm. I had more problems with power supplies, to be honest with you, and I think it was just because we had an unusually warm season. You know, we were 80 degrees at Christmas Eve. And I think that was causing some of the power supply issues that we had down here. So,
are those light gauge wires different from Raywu than from DIY Light Express?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't have any from Raywu. All of mine have come from DIY LED Express. You know, they look identical. You look at the pictures. I think the same manufacturer is making them. I can only imagine they just crank
the only ones. The ones I got from you were the only ones I have from DIY LED Express. All the other ones are from Ray, and they're pretty dependable too.
You talking about the 12 millimeter bullets or the Pixel?
Yeah, 12 millimeter both. I have strips and bullets too. Yeah. So all of them are 12.
I mean, I know. When I first got involved with Pixels, you know, I was using Raywu like everybody else, and we didn't know any better. And you know, my only complaint with Ray, and he stands behind his product. I give him that, but he's just a broker. You know, he's not manufacturing that product, and he's finding it, you know, the best rate he can, and he's just reselling it. That's probably my biggest complaint with him, because you would order something from him one year, and it would be the next year it might be the exact same invoice you ordered from, but that product might show up different. You know, whether it's the color configuration on the outputs, it might go from red, green, blue to blue, green, red, or whatever, but it never failed. There was something different about him. And I don't know if he's gotten any better. I haven't ordered anything from him other than some P10 panels, but other than that, I haven't ordered any Pixels from him in probably 2+ years. Whereas Todd, he's actually dealing with a manufacturer over there. And so where he buys them from, they're made right there. He can, again, have anything he wants made, whatever you order. I don't know if that's helping or not, but they've been consistent. You know, I know the 2 years that I've purchased from them, I think we purchased 30,000 something nodes this past year, and you know, they matched the ones I bought the year before that. I mean, they're there. So, you know, it's pretty consistent, and I like that, you know, because I don't have to worry about, you know, tweaking the colors, and especially when I was using the 682, because that output controlled all 4 strings. And so, you know, if you replaced a string in your mega tree and one string had different outputs on it, you were screwed with a 682. So little things like that, man, it all comes up and sneaks up on you sometimes.
You know, if you're buying them in a pre-sale, it makes really no sense not to buy them from Todd. If you're buying them pre-sale, because they're cheaper, as cheap or cheaper than Ray anyway.
I'm curious to see what their changes are going to be on the V2s, though.
Well, it's called what do you mean the V2? You mean the
Pixel bulb? The Pixel bulb.
Oh, the version 2 of his, yeah. See, yeah.
Well, and I can probably fill you in. Todd and I've talked about it, and you know, of course, Dave Moore found who his vendor was, which is the same vendor or manufacturer that makes the LOR CCB. And what really makes this go south is when Todd first found them, they would allow him to use the same faceted lens, the same the green cup that holds everything. All of that was the same, but they could not use the LOR PCB that was being used. So Todd rather, I'm sorry, had to come up with his own PCB for the Pixel bulb. And when he did that, supposedly there was a verbal agreement. There's your problem, is it was just a verbal agreement that they would not manufacture those bulbs for anyone else. And I think he felt he was safe because they protected LOR. Now, I think the difference is the sheer quantity. LOR probably orders who knows how many millions of bulbs from them. And so this guy was willing to capitalize on David Moore wanting to purchase the same product so he could just move more of it. And so he broke that agreement he had with Todd. So that vendor is no longer going to be making them for DIY LED Express. He's got a different vendor. He is actually doing the molds on the base for the bulbs. I'm not sure about the lens because the lenses were always purchased from another manufacturer. So they may be using that same lens just to keep some of the cost down. But I know he's spending the money on the molds, and he's going to have his logo or the website URL designed into that base of the new base of the Pixel bulb, if you will. But we're toying around with some other ideas. I don't want to rain on his parade and disclose all of those, but that's something that we've been lucky enough to help design and toss out some ideas because it's going to work with some of our products. Again, to just a better way to display the bulb or to hang the bulb or, position the bulb in the right orientation. So it's some pretty neat stuff that may come out of this. So don't know which way he's going with it yet, but we had fun working with him on it and still are working with it. So,
well, I mean,
he wanted to have it out for the pre-sale, just there wasn't enough time.
The good thing is when something like this happens, it may not be good for the vendors, but it ends up being good for the purchasers because it drives some innovation, which sucks when you're forced into doing it, but it's good for us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We definitely reap the benefits of it, whether it's a lower price or a better product. So it's going to be a good product. I like them. This was my first year using them. We used them in a commercial project that we did this year. It was in a historic village, and the beauty of the Pixel bulb is it looks like the old-fashioned C9s kind of. It's got that big, fancy, faceted bulb, and it blended right in for what we were doing. Of course, we made all the mounting strips that were white. It blended in with all the white trim of the house, and during the day, you can't even see the lights on the house. And that was a really neat project that we did this year. So,
if anybody wants some Technicolor V1s, I'll let you buy them from me.
I got a lot too.
Is that so we can reclaim the wire off of them or something?
Yes.
What?
You probably couldn't even sell the wire for scrap.
Yeah.
Well, where'd you buy those, Kevin? You buy those from? Is that part of that whole D-Moore debacle?
No, I bought those directly from Ray. Thank goodness, because Ray made it right. So I can't complain on them really. I got nothing bad to say on it, other than they were annoying the year I tried to use them.
Yeah.
He.
But it was one of your close friends that
David
had that problem then.
Yeah, David's in here. He's got some fire picks that he had problems with. He ran them this year though.
Knock on wood, they worked this year. But this is their last year. They're done. I'm done with it.
Cool.
Yeah, I still remember that whole thread on Facebook and all that. And
oh my gosh. I mean, we were trying everything to keep those things alive.
Yeah. That should have been a lesson 101 in customer service. Sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and just basically make people whole. And then you think of how many enemies he made just from that one transaction.
Yeah, well.
And I want to say, yeah, he's still selling them. I want to say David bought some from him, like this year. But I think that those, I want to say that batch of fire picks had a different issue than the V1s you got direct from Ray. I want to say that the chip, there was a different chip on the fire picks than there was on the Technicolor V1s from Ray. At least that's the way I understand it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but I did talk to Zach, and he said that that Ray's engineer changed something on his side that made it to where the regulators were not up to speed or something. I don't know, and it was causing the regulators to fail or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever
It was nasty because, I mean, Zach got ran off the forum, basically. I tried to talk. I mean, I talked to him a few times, and people just, kind of took it out on him. It was one of those things. But I did. Ray did send me some V3s. I got sitting in a box, in the house. I'm gonna go dunk them in some water and test them out.
Now, do those have a lens? Do those have the screw-on lens?
I haven't looked at them. It's still got the little screw-on base where you can put a lens on, but I haven't tested the base. I haven't taken them off one of the old V2s to try them on it yet.
That's my trouble. I got like 1,000 of those.
Yeah. And they're a pain to pull off and put on too.
Yeah, that's not fun, but I like the look, but man, a lot.
Yeah, I might have to invest in something like that. Right now I've been just using regular nodes with that lens cover, that little faceted C9 cover, but they don't stay on that good. But in what I'm using for my yard borders, they're pretty. It's not bad because I'm using fencing material to put them in, and I could just hot glue the lenses right to the fencing material, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, I ended up putting pixel bulbs on the roof because they had a less failure rate, and of course the only failure I did have was in the worst spot. It was on the highest peak of my house, on the right side.
Yeah.
On the right side, I'm left-handed, so it was an awkward, one of the contortionist moves to get up there on a ladder and fix it. But
Never fail.
Yeah, I didn't have any other failures other than that. I had 4 colors go out on some pixel bulbs that happened last year that I repaired, but nothing else went out. Luckily, thank goodness. Anybody else have any questions? Speak up.
Well, that's for me is what speaks volumes in terms of the lowest failure rates and in terms of good pixels. I mean, I know there's so many out there, but
the other key to remember is that whatever you do buy, you need to test, and test, and make sure that it's going to work before you decide to put it in a display. Because it's like the Technicolor ones. A lot of people were bid at the last minute because they tried a few, they lit up nice, but they didn't expose them to the elements. They didn't burn them in long periods of times, and we got caught flat-footed almost, And my idea whenever I add something to our display is we make it something that's a prototype. We do one of it, we stick it out in the yard for 6 months, we let it run just whenever I have time to turn it on. And if it lasts that 6 months, then we know that it's going to be solid enough to use in a display. Because there's nothing worse than having to take a prop out of a display during the middle of Christmas when everyone's watching.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did about a month burn in on the Technicolors and had no failures, but it was indoors. And when I put them outdoors, they ran for a couple of weeks. And then the rains came, and then it was hot and cold, cold at night, hot during the day in the sun, and that showed itself real quick.
Yeah, it did it really quick. It happened to my friend Brandon too. He ran them indoors for a couple months. Really liked it. He handmade all his strips before. This was before James did his strips, and spent months working on all the strips, and they failed within a matter of days.
Oh.
He was replacing his strip every couple hours. And luckily for him, he had enough strips to go through it.
And so the next day he would repair all the ones he had pulled down the night before. And it was terrible.
I was out often in the middle of the show replacing pixels. I finally just reverted back to my old show, and I said, forget it. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Live and learn, but I definitely go with you as far as burn in, and not just burn in, but put them out in the yard, in the backyard or something. Lay them outside somewhere. Let them go through that process of hot and cold and all.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like the Falcon board, right? So you had version 1, and now version 2 is out, and it's proven itself. But, you take a lot of risk when you depend on just one board. The sand device, same problems, starting with the 681s and going to the 682s. And, they worked very well from the get-go, but they could have been just as equally bad as the Technicolors, right?
Yeah.
So when people ask me, well, why do you use a variety of boards? Why do you do this and that? It's because I don't know how good it's going to be the next year. Will it last that one season? Do you want to put a bunch of money into something that's just going to fail like the Technicolors? Or do you kind of spread your bet a bit, buy best what you can for that time? It's a personal choice, right? But just remember, everything you do, it does suck having a failure in the middle of Christmas.
Yeah, it's not very hard for any company, from DIY LED Express to over to Holiday Coro to get a bad run of some electrical component on the boards of their pixels, and then you get in for a mess.
Yep.
I can tell you one company that won't have that problem.
Who's that?
James. I'm not selling electronics. And that's the number one reason why.
Yeah.
It's because you never know if you're gonna get that bad batch, man. There's just no way. So it's not worth it, man. I can't control it, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, you're relying on World Semi, and you're relying on sometimes they aren't. Yeah, they're not sure if they're counterfeit or not sometimes.
Yep.
I don't know. My first batch of strips, I'm certain that black was one shade lighter than the first.
I don't know. The thing that I would like to
send them back in. I'll give you a replacement.
Is somebody that has tested their item, whatever it is, and they bring it back to Expo the following year, and they show me what a year's worth of exposure has done to it.
We can do that. I wish I had some of my competitors' strips just to show the brittleness, just to have them side by side. I almost ordered some from him, but I just couldn't go down to that level to give him the money. I just couldn't do it.
So is everyone familiar with Geek My Tree?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so I was one of the first adopters for the Geek My Tree, and I spent quite a bit of money to buy one of his kits. And his was a product that he said that he had learned from a lot of other people's failures, and he had some good ideas. And so I bought one of his kits, and I got a 10-foot tall kit basically. And I ran it last year and had a couple failures in the strips, which he replaced. His customer service is great, don't get me wrong at all. But for the second year of operation, his pixels have started to go downhill rather quickly. And so, while I'm happy to support people that are doing prototypes or first runs, and I would never buy all of one thing just because of an example like that. He thought he had learned from his mistakes from other people. He thought he had a better product. He had done his research. He had done his due diligence to design the best that he could. And even the best, though, there were still problems.
Yeah.
And it was a first run. And now his second run, I'm sure, will be better. But, it's just words of wisdom.
Yeah, I've still got my original pixels I bought from Ray that do the outline of my window, garage, and windows and garage, and my reeds, which are the 2801s. Starting to show their age, but they still work.
I mean, as far as electronics go, you never know. If you have a microprocessor that fails, but I mean, when you're buying your processors from a company like Microchip or Freescale or any of the big ones like that, where there is no clones for the most part. I mean, you're kind of hedging your bets, but you never really know. But the next Falcon board is actually will be like the third or fourth. We've been making controllers since 2012, so it isn't like even though the V2 is like new this year, there was like 3 years of R&D that went into it to get it to that point.
Have you got the mock-ups for the ribbon cables and the add-on board that you're doing this year?
They're fully designed. I have complete Gerber files ready to send. It's just I'm working on the V2 co-op and the group buy. I don't really want to spend too much time on it right now, but in the next month I'm going to send off, get some prototypes. But they're using the same type of technology that we've been using on the smart string controllers for the last 3 years, so
right.
It isn't like we're doing anything new.
Right.
So it's just we're putting 8 of them on a board instead of 2 or 1, or so mainly it's just current draw, current supply, make sure that that's good, and if that's good, then the rest of it's pretty much a done deal. It's not the rocket science. It's all running at relatively low speeds. That's another thing, is all this stuff is low speed compared to my day job. I'm dealing with like 1 megabit instead of 300 or 400 or 500 or whatever it is that we work with. So none of this is really too tight tolerance type stuff.
You're figuring out a way to plug the Pi Zero into the Falcon, right?
Not really. Not really. The Falcon right now, the V2 has a place to plug a Pi into it.
Right.
The problem with the Pi Zero is that you need to get the data there. The only way to get the data there is with a $10 USB drive.
Yeah.
And now you're, sending a bunch of USB data over there. I'd almost rather just, run it in client slave mode,
Right.
So that's another way that you can do, is if you wanted to connect a Zero. But to connect the Zero to the F16 V2 or the V3 board, it's only 3 or 4 pins. It's an SPI connection running at about, I don't know what we run it at. I think we were running at 16 megabits or something like that to send 32,000 channels over 40 times a second. But there's not really, other than 4 pins that connect the two together, there's really not much more data.
Right.
Much more configuration. But we have it now on the V2. We actually have the connector to plug in the Pi. It's just getting Chris and me together on the same page to, he's doing so much other stuff and then right now you have a way to drive the V2 from the Pi just using an E131, data wire, drive to it. So there's almost, no benefit and a lot of development to get the web pages to configure it and all that and everything else.
Right.
There's also signals on the board that you just replace 3 jumpers in another position. You can drive the OLED display right from the Pi. So it's all ready to go. It's just finding that time and that, does it rank that high on the priority list?
Right.
Right now, there's just not that many people that are missing it because there's a way to get the Pi's data over to the F16 V2 via E131. So
yeah.
Yep.
We'll see.
Well, I'm going to do my best to sell my E682 to somebody.
Well, they're a solid controller. That was the big inspiration for the V2, was the layout of that, and the V1's boards, which are more of a PixelNet board.
I just don't use it in the way, I don't use the E682 the way it should be used. I would have been better off to buy another E6804 for how I use it,
Yeah. Well, a lot of people like that distributed type of system, again, for less point of failures, or not just a single point of failure. But they're $100 a piece, though.
Yeah, you can't.
I mean, they're not cheap, right? I mean, it's still $100. If you got to replace that, you got to have $100. So, if you had 4 of those out in the yard and you'd want to have one spare. So, but you only need 1 spare, I guess.
Well, the only thing that was keeping me from using the Falcon this year on my pixel tree and the arches was the distance. And now that distance isn't going to be an issue, it kind of changes my game plan a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I always keep one laying around. That's for sure. Like
yeah,
I have one sitting there.
I still have my ECGP2 sitting in a box.
I never owned a 682. I only saw pictures of it. I've never even seen one in person, but they look nice. I have seen the 6804, and I was surprisingly alarmed at how hot those things run. That heatsink can burn your finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Probably because of all the power you have to dissipate from 12 if you're running 12-volt pixels. I was just surprised that it does run that hot. The regulator, that is.
And I normally don't run. I run power straight to the pixels. I don't run it off the board.
Yeah, but okay, yeah. So the board, that would be good because that board runs probably better at 5 volts, I would think, or whatever a lower voltage.
I did because of something that happened to David W. in here this year. I did freaking fuse the crap out of everything. Every line that went out got a fuse on it. He had a potential bad situation happen in his garage.
Well, going out to the pixels, that's a must.
Yeah.
Fusing the input to the controller is kind of iffy because I think if you know you're fusing, you probably do it correctly, but most people some people maybe not. Because you put a 30 amp fuse in there. Well, if your power supply can only supply 30 amps, you're never going to trip it because usually they don't trip till they reach about 40 amps. So that 30 amp fuse, if you're coming from a 30 amp power supply, even if it was dead shorted across the power supply, you're probably not going to generate more than 30 amps. Yeah. So you're probably never trip the fuse. And if you go lower than that, then you might trip it with just when you're actually supplying enough power. So I always a little leery about when you fuse the input to the controller. Now, if you have a 60 amp 5 volt power supply and you put a 30 amp fuse, then I could see that. But typically, I'm a little, and that's kind of why I took the fuses off of the F16 V1 board, is because I didn't want to give people the false sense. Okay, yeah, there's a 30 amp fuse in there, but you might not ever trip it if you're using a 30 amp power supply.
Right.
I think it's really important that you do your math on your pixel draw, right? So you know how much a string should be taking and to adjust if you do have something that is fused, to make sure you just use the right size. Because like you said, it does have that little play in the fuse.
I do my math and then I put an amp meter on it.
Yep.
Just to make sure.
Well, 5 amp fuses are a pretty good starting point. I mean, you can always go lower. The F16 V2, I don't really want you to go higher, but it's a good starting point. If you had something go wrong on the pixel string, shorted power to ground, you're probably going to blow that fuse.
And people do have to remember when you inject the power on the tail end of the string, you've got to fuse both ends.
Yeah, if you're doing injecting, that injection needs to be, of which I haven't done much of. I'm not much of an injector, but, I kind of like the expansion boards and stuff, because then when you do the injection, like you said, you got to add in a fuse, you got to add in this, and by that time you've already built an expansion board, except for it's not as clean, unless you're doing those really nice fuse blocks where people spend $300 making an enclosure, which is not the way I roll either. I go out and buy a $10 piece of Tupperware from Walmart, but then again, I'm cheap like that.
I'm running most of my stuff from the garage, so I mounted it on a board, mounted the F16 on the board, mounted my fuse blocks on the board, on a piece of plywood, and hung it up in my garage.
Well, I just saw a post from a guy on my forum that the guy spent $110 just in the enclosure box.
Nice.
You know what I mean? It was beautiful though. Don't get me wrong; it was a work of art. But I was like, oh my gosh, $110 for just a box. another guy made one for some city like Central Park, like Central, like in I don't even know what he was a full blown innovator though, and it was like something, inside some kind of a major electrical panel type thing, and he made three. I think they paid thousands of dollars per box.
Good God.
Yeah, but they were really nice looking. He had that channel where all the wires run in, where you can't see any of the wires in the box. And also maybe post a picture of that because it was quite impressive. He was controlling a 60-foot Megatree, 300 pixels, 64 strand, 300 pixels each. The Megatree was like made out of. They had the like iron workers come. It was all made out of metal, like 4-inch tubing or something. Really. It's amazing what some cities will pay to do their light shows.
It's not their money.
Yeah, I think he said there was like $150,000-$200,000 budget or something for just the project or just the tree or something. They even flew Tom Bajork in to do the sequencing. The guy from the guy that had the guitar, in the American Greatest Light Fight.
He was the first one that did the Star Wars with the spotlights on his roof.
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice guy.
Sequencing, and he was there. I guess they paid for him to fly in. Whatever. Big cities, big municipalities.
Yeah, I think Gulfport, they ended up blowing about $2 million on their Christmas light show they did this year. I heard it was pretty awesome. I don't know what they get like for that Christmas in Color that Holden was involved in, that big drive-through thing. That's pretty impressive. I'm curious how much that cost. I can't imagine it was cheap.
And then Fabian Gordon had some big thing that he showed a video of, a drone of or something. That was some big display where they had some astronomical amount of megatrees. I was like, wow. Speaking of drone, hey James, have you seen that Liche program that runs for the Phantom 3 Pro? It's $20.
Is
It's
that the
weight in gold, man. The thing's awesome. You can plot a course and it'll do all the automatic flying for you and do all the shooting, pointing, and everything towards everything. It's all done with a little map, like Google overhead map. It's great.
Is that a separate board? It's not a DJI product, is it?
No, it's just this piece of software that runs on an Android or an iOS a cell phone, and it uses the API that DJI lets everybody write code to, and it turns your drone into like a real drone where you don't even fly it, you don't even do anything basically.
Wow.
You just click the start button. And you set the waypoint.
Well, I mean, they've had that. You've always been able to click. I haven't done it. It's just like the Follow Me app and stuff that DJI has. I mean, you've been able to select that waypoint, go on Google Maps and create a waypoint of where it's going to travel to and do that. It's just another company, I guess, has released their version of it with the API. Now, have you seen the one where it turns your cell phone into the first-person viewer? It's you buy their goggles. I'll have to go find the app for it, send it to you. But you take the goggles that they designed and you put your iPhone that's tethered to the controller, and then you look through that for your first-person viewer.
Yeah.
And it's relatively inexpensive. And it's like, that beats the hell out of buying like an Oculus or something, one of those other products that are out there. So,
well, that's included in the Liche one too for $20, is it has that first-person view.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's one of the. There's like 5 different, flight modes. One's orbit, one's called focus, where it actually just focuses in on a point, and you could fly around anywhere you want. And it'll keep focused on that point.
Well, if you want a Phantom right now, they're $300 off.
Yeah, I wouldn't get anything but the advanced or higher.
Yeah, advanced.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on the fence. Like
advanced and the Pro, I would just get the Pro.
Yeah, if the money's not that much difference, because the two major changes between the two is the 4K camera, and then the charger is one's a 65 watt and one's a 100 watt charger. And that's the only difference is
And that
really
100-watt
matters.
charger charges that battery in like 35 minutes. So it's like, wow. I was very impressed with the charging speed of that 100-watt charger.
I don't see the Pro
Yeah,
on
I
their
did.
site anymore.
Oh, it's there.
All I see is Advanced and the Phantom 3 4K.
That's the Pro.
Yeah, they
That's
don't
the Pro.
they don't say it's Pro anymore. It's the gold one. So it just says
That's
4K.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main
Now,
thing.
whenever you
Like,
drop down, when you drop down to the standard version, you lose the light bridge, which is very important. Light bridge goes back to the Wi-Fi connection between your phone and the controller for your video. And so you're very limited on the range, probably about 500-600 feet, and then it's going to start flaking out a little bit. Whereas the light bridge, which is included with the Pro and Advanced, it claims it can get 1.2 miles, and I've pushed it right at a mile before it started flaking out, which is pretty impressive for the video signal in real time. So
There's
I'm pleased with it.
3 and 5 miles with the high gain antennas if you just join the DJI groups on Facebook. And they post them out there with maps and everything. It's impressive. Illegal for going out of line of sight, but especially with the FAA's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're 5 miles away, I'd be a little concerned about having enough battery to make it back.
Yeah, for real.
Now, I'm planning a P10 panels on my quad. What do you guys do?
Start flying around through your show.
Make it part of the show, not filming the show.
I guess you guys saw that Intel thing with all the drones.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was cool.
If
I
you look
would
at
hate to do the
for
maintenance
DARPA,
on that.
David, how many quads do you have now? I've got 4.
I only got 2. I got a little one that I fly in the house for like $35, which is very hard to fly compared to my Phantom Pro. My Phantom Pro, that thing is a no-brainer. You can have I had my little 4-year-old fly that thing. I don't have a 4-year-old, but if she was 4, she would fly. Yeah, the people that are concerned about crashing the Phantom, any of the Phantoms, really haven't flown one yet. Once you get one, you're like, this thing, you'd have to really work hard to crash that thing. Very hard.
Well, you can take it out of beginner mode, man. It'll let you do some stupid stuff. I'll tell you that. It'll let you roll it over and do some stuff you shouldn't do with it. But I wouldn't mind getting in some of the first-person races they do now. And I think there's a little place here in town that's about to open up, and they're going to start offering that. It's an indoor go-kart track. It's indoors, and they're going to do drone flights indoors. And you race the course flying the drones, which I think would be awesome.
You can buy those little 250 kits for like $169 now, and then add the FPV gear. That's what I did.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I've got the Nighthawk Pro, and it's got the FPV gear included. It's already got the transmitter built right on it.
Nice.
Right out of the box. All you need is the goggles or the display, and you're good to go.
When did you
we're sitting here talking about drones, our buddy Roger at Pixel Sequencing posted his P10 panel enclosures for sale.
I was just looking at that. Yeah. I knew he was making it.
Where's this at now?
He posted it on
Holiday hyphen sequences or something.
No, he. I think because I liked his page, so I see his post.
Now, I've spoken with Roger, and he's a really nice guy.
He's very cool.
Yeah.
2x2 is 190, and the 3x3 is 250. Wow.
Yeah.
Post up a link to it.
Sequencing post. All right.
Copy. Got it.
Paste. There you go.
And it's not bad. I mean, I know what we were looking at before with some of the ABS materials, the thicker sheet material that we were looking at using. That price looked good compared to those. And that's why we abandoned it, because it was just too expensive. So
Yeah, I know that ain't cheap, is it? But anytime you deal with that acrylic front glass, I know on mine, which was a 4x2, I spent $65 just in acrylic just to make the front panel from Home Depot. So,
well, what happens? I'm
Right.
looking at this link. What happens when water gets in behind the on the backside? Because the
We've
backside
got a cover for it.
according to this, the backside is not sealed. It just uses Coro on the back.
Oh, really?
that's all mine was sealed with was Coro, but then again, I don't have zero rain. I mean, if there's rain here, I'm at 7,000 feet. It's turning to snow. Time it hits the ground.
Here, let me tell you my sob story. I was in Maui last week, and I went to the top of the darn volcano and went from 0 to 9,700 freaking feet, and it was cold as crap up there. It was like in the 20s with the wind chill.
Yeah, anytime you gain that kind of elevation, no doubt, you're gonna drop 20, 30 degrees no matter where you're at. Even if you're in Maui. Yeah, because in the summertime, it can be like 80 degrees here down at 7,000 feet. But if you go up to Pikes Peak, it could be 40 degrees up there. 30 degree, 40 degree change, 50 degree change. It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, that's a I could see the price because I know I spent at least $100 to build mine with just raw materials. So I could see why it would be cut. That's why there's probably a market to come up with a plastic version of it. It's maybe not as
It's on its way.
It sure have taken off, huh? I think we blew some minds over there at the expo, huh, Steve? When we fired up John Bax or Fred's display over there.
That impressed me. Sure did.
Because that was, I think, what was that? Was that like a 5x5 or something?
It's a 4x5.
4x5, yeah. It was like, wow.
It was like something weird, like adding 40,000 channels of X lights on the fly. You go, okay, hey, it works, cool. 40,000 channels done.
Is that how much it was?
It was something stupid high. You could.
Well, I had a 2x4 and it's 12,000 channels. So yeah, if it's a
4x5 would be over 12,000.
So it's
20
two
channels
times
off of that's 10,000 times 3, 32,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, 32,000 channels is a lot of channels for a sequencer. Not many.
For one model.
I think that pretty much separated the different sequencers with that.
Yeah.
I like showing people my Pi, and I go, this is what runs my Christmas show, and they just look at it and go, what is that?
It's the future.
Who's loading a magazine?
You found me out. Load my Glock.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like somebody's loading it up.
It's going to be exciting times. We'll see where all this takes us this year.
Yeah.
Are you going to make if you think about it, with that development kit, you could really do something with the Phantoms. Put some lights on your Phantom. Make your Phantom part of the show.
Do they
Yeah,
have
you
a
know, I was
model?
talking with Sean, and if we ever did a 3D version of X-Lights, you know, that would be a way to, like, you know, create like a camera view and have it move, and then I kid you not, Sean was, because I'm coming over to his house to do a show, and I was telling him about this whole Liche and waypoints, and told him to develop his waypoints, and the first thing he's saying is, I could add that into X-Lights, you know, the file format, and I'm like. But I think the first part would be to do the 3D, and I think the 3D could be done without actually sequencing 3D, but just more of the preview from 3D. The ticket would just have to be the way to get the other dimension into the layout, but you know, but still do all your sequencing as if they were done with a 2D map or a matrix, but you know, just when you know, so in other words, don't enhance it to 3D rendering at first, but just do 3D previewing of the 2D rendering. You know, that would be a good start, I think.
Oh, like a Disney truck with the matrix that's, you know, 8 deep.
Yeah. Well, whatever you do, you know, you'd have to have a way to input the show, you know, to map the pixels, you know, to display them properly. But
yeah,
it's all in there because we're using the
Well, that's awful.
you know, we're using the you know, the drawing program, I forget what it's called.
WX widget.
OpenGL, the OpenGL, so it's already ready to go. You just pretty much just have to turn on the you know the you know, do 3D plotting, and which I think we're doing now. I think we're just setting one of the axes to 0, and then you know, then you could just display it with just a different camera angle. Because right now, when you're looking at it in X-Lights and it's showing the preview, you're actually looking at OpenGL in 3D space. But what we're doing is setting the viewing angle to be, you know, a normalized angle from the front. You know, it's just as easy to change that to any, you know, point or any camera spot.
All this time, you could have given me a slider to see it from a different angle.
Yeah, but it would have been all in the same flat plane.
Oh.
You know, you need to create that third dimension and then map the strings to that third dimension.
Oh, what it would look like, yeah.
It would look killer though, if it was done. Then you could actually create your drone of camera angles and views and movement and all that based on, let's say, a DJI Pro, and you would be able to see it, what it would be looking like from the drone, and then you would upload that picture, that file as waypoints. Because when you save a mission in this Liche program, it creates all the waypoints and everything onto a file that resides on the Android, you know, internal memory somewhere.
There's a guy on YouTube who did 3D drawings with his drone with long exposure. So he hundreds and hundreds of waypoints, and you fly it, and you do like maybe a 5-minute exposure. When it's done, it looks awesome. Kind of like how you do with the laser if you set your camera to wait 30 seconds.
Yeah, kind of like a time lapse.
Yeah. You gonna go out to the Vegas training day?
I told Sean I'd come out, but I'm not gonna like hang out and learn about X-Lights too much. If I come out, I'll come out with my wife, and we'll hit a couple shows and stuff like that. It won't be a sitting in a classroom all day type thing. But maybe my wife liked the last show, and she kind of socialized, mingled, went and saw some classes, sat in on a few of the classes, and she thought it was fun.
Hey, she could sequence for dollars.
Nah, I don't think we can top Sean's wife. She did pretty good. Yeah. She's musically inclined. You know, she plays instruments. Their whole family's like, Sean like's been playing the flute for like 30 years. You know, kind of like orchestra type or whatever they call that. You know, symphony type quality type player, and their whole family's involved in music. So yeah, she's really good at knowing beats and stuff. I was definitely surprised and happy because I'm not a good sequencer at all. So I'm looking forward to next year, just having her do a few of mine. Or we're gonna sweeten up the import too, though. That's one of the things that I probably will work on for X-Lights this year. Is I'll probably try to sweeten that up and make it to where sharing is a lot easier between people.
I can tell you that the big shift I see in helping people, and I see it this year even more than the last 2 years, is probably one of the bigger helpers is we're seeing a lot more lore conversion people over.
Yeah, and I won't be a big part of that because I don't even know more and I know nothing about it and don't really want to.
And you see those type of questions come up, and it's just for whatever reason, and whatever it's fine, but that seems to be the latest new user.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that Facebook lore group because if you try to, they heavily silence you over in the lore forums if you speak too much.
It's getting better though over there as far as X-Lights goes, right? I mean, before they were really hostile towards X-Lights, but now due to the exodus to X-Lights, it seems like they're more tolerant regarding X-Lights talk, at least. And one of the biggest F16V2 threads have been over there. It's like 180, 90 posts, so a lot of them are interested in that. I think they're opening up on that lore group more so than the lore forum, for sure.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's where the majority of the users are going to come, and I think that's probably one of the advantages of X-Lights thus far, is that it is allowing a path, an easy path, or an easier path, even though it's still quite complex to switch to X-Lights. Whereas some of the other sequencers, it's a little bit harder, and there's not much information out there to go to, like say Vixen, from lore. It's not as easy.
Well, it's not even just that. It's the lore. When you're looking at lore users, a lot of them aren't. They're new. They don't have a whole lot of knowledge. They don't know anything about Renard. They don't know anything outside of lore. They think that lore is it. And when you try to broaden their mind a little bit, they get excited and they want to learn more. I mean, I started off in lore. I mean, I've got 2 lore boxes in my garage right now. So,
Dave, do you know? I would ask Sean this if he was here. He had made public post about him working on code that you'd give a lore LCC file or a Lee file, and it would draw that out in X-Lights.
Yeah, he hit some kind of roadblock. I can't remember exactly what it was, and he was explaining it all to me. But it was one of those nights where you're like, I'm tired.
that would be an awesome thing, though.
He hit some kind of roadblock. He wanted to bring in everything. He wanted to bring in he was trying to bring in the preview. He was trying to bring in everything. I think it had, now that I'm recalling, it's coming back to me, is I think what it was is that there was some ambiguity on naming conventions inside lore, where basically things could be named differently. It was hard to link the two together, link group to items together, and it had to do with just the inconsistencies in the lore naming inside the actual file. That was giving him some grief. Knowing how to map it correctly to the right model within.
Now, that's one thing in X-Lights that I think they should take a look at is like whenever you do a true import and you have to sit there and map your channels from the import file to the X-Lights, they should force a save there, because if you don't know any better and you continue, you've screwed yourself, because then you have to do it again.
Yeah, I think there's a mapping, right? Isn't there? Oh, you mean it should do an automatic? I think it should do an automatic save.
Yeah, it should do an automatic save, but right now it doesn't, or at least it didn't when I used it a few months ago.
Yeah, and it's not the easiest thing to do when you're mapping hundreds and hundreds of channels, right? So
yeah.
It needs a little bit better user interface, and that's kind of what we want to do on the sharing right now. When you open up a sequence where the models aren't defined in your layout, it pops up this one by one. What do you want to do? What do you want to name? What do you want to do? What do you want to name? I would like to see more of a spreadsheet, kind of a 2 sides, kind of like a SQL server mapping type screen.
Right.
It allows you to pick two items and then click a button to map them, and they go into another table, like the map table, and allow you to organize it a little bit easier rather than just kind of a one dialogue. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to, that type of thing. And that's what I might work on, just because that's what I used this year. Although I cheated and I had Sean write me a script that basically just did a full-blown name replacement and throughout the whole sequence file using some DOS command type thing. But it worked really well once it was all done. But I had to create the initial text file that, mapped his to mine. But the power of X-Lights was shown there because, he had eaves, I had eaves. He had yard borders, I had yard borders. He had snow, we had similar items, and I was able to map. But we had different positions. My yard borders went around this way, his went around that way. So I basically had to map his to mine, and when I did that, all the sequences came out really nice, and it didn't matter that whether my tree was a different dimensions than his, and whether my yard borders had 50 nodes and his only had 40, and all that. It was just all done for you. So the power of X-Lights really came through there with the model-based design. It just needs a lot more sweetening of the user interface, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things that I'm sure they're going to work on in the next few months.
A lot of it just comes with growing pains. We never had a user interface until last December, when we started the whole thing. So we only got really 1 year of user interface at all anyway. I mean, I remember that at this time last year, I was just creating the waveform, So we didn't have anything January of last year. So we've come a long way in 1 year as far as, user interface.
Right.
Absolutely. And for a bunch of volunteers, it's, industry leading software.
Yeah, you can't beat it. I sing its praises for sure. And I came from Lure to LSP over to X-Lights. Well, I was actually kind of forced to X-Lights, but I'm glad that I was. Actually, I went to HLS before X-Lights, and I still use HLS for my AC stuff. But Pixels and X-Lights is just a breeze.
Yeah. And I think it's just that model based. And then obviously it's written in a C++, low level type, it has to be because it has to port to 3 different operating systems. So you can't really write it in, Visual Studio. It needs to go 3 different places. So it has to be pretty much all C++ driven, which makes it really lightweight, underneath, there's not much of the problems that other people are having. It just needs some tender loving care on the user interface, and there's a lot of good stuff that's coming out of it. I know that for instance, just today, I'm sure Steve, you might have got the post, but not Matt Brown, Dan has improved the render engine by 20%.
Wow!
Just in the last 2 days. He took out a bunch, and then this is the type of stuff that you're just glad you got people as qualified to handle as him, because he's like profiling every single function and looking for where all the slop is at, and he found that using the sign function with double precision when we really only need single point float precision or whatever, is causing a 15% increase in render times, and you're just like, okay, I'm glad you're profiling that. I mean, but I guess that's what this guy does for a living, is he's in charge of some big open source company or whatever, and he's over, tens of developers. So, but yet in the spare times he comes home and works on X-Lights. In fact, he was working on X-Lights when he was on a Disney cruise.
Holy crap.
I mean, they're full-blown professionals, him and Gil. Gil works in some kind of radar, group at Raytheon or something, so, they're pretty top programmers.
Why, matter of fact, he is a rocket scientist.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does Dan do?
Dan, again, I think he's like in charge of like some big open source company who handles multiple different projects. I think he's like higher than like a team leader or some sort. Like he's like in charge of the foundation or something. I don't know. been programming for many, many years. And yeah, that's why right in the beginning when we started X-Lights 4, after we got done with the initial user interface, me and Sean, it was, I said, Sean, we need to get Dan to do the render routines because we need that guy. So we got him on the phone and he agreed to it. And ever since then, him and Gil's just gone off. But especially Dan and his ability to write that multi-core, multi-threaded engine to do it. That's why it's so fast, is because he's running on all cores, whatever many cores you got. And it's it's blazing as fast as probably, it's blazing pretty good, I think. He's always looking for ways to improve it. And then Gil on the user interface and in effects generation, the morph and all that, Superstar. Which is amazing that you could bring in a Superstar file and have it play almost exactly the way it plays in lore. That's pretty amazing to me. I was downloading last year. Whenever I bought Superstar, I had to bring in the I had to bring in the lore sequence file, the LMS file or whatever, or whatever it was. This year, you just bring right in the soup file, the SGP file, and it played it perfectly.
Not only do you bring it in, you get all the effects to edit as well.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I would never do that. That's just me, though. I hate sequencing. Yeah, I guess if you wanted to add some text or something like that, you could. Something.
I done for some of the ones that I purchased. I broke those some small sections into effects that I saved as presets, and I used those elsewhere.
That's cool.
I don't know if that's.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about it. I never thought about that. Yeah, you could just copy a certain range of effects and channels or whatever, and bring them in on your tree later on.
And if you get more than one of those sequences from anybody, if Superstar's doing them or Holiday Lights, they're human. They don't want to repeat the same thing, and a lot of songs have similar parts. You're getting the exact same effects or very close in different songs.
Yeah. Some good stuff coming out of X-Lights, that's for sure.
Everything good is coming out of X-Lights. That's the good part.
Those guys are not resting on their laurels either. I'm part of the whole, and I'm sure Steve is too. We're part of they're working on it right now.
Yeah.
I look at GitHub and there's maybe 15, 20 check-ins a week of new code.
God.
You think you're not working, and it's all late at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got Gil apologizing for Dan because Dan's like, "Hey, can you test this out for me?" They just rechanged the whole internal structure of the way the effect panels are and everything like that. I don't know how many lines of code got changed, but thousands and thousands of lines of code to make it more optimal. And Dan's like emailing Gil, "Hey, can you check out all these changes?" Gil's like, "I can't do it tonight, but sorry, I'll have to do it tomorrow night." But they're on it, both of them. It's amazing. You would think after Christmas, but no, they got this huge laundry list of things that are trying to get done. It's they're still going.
Well, it's going to be interesting with Sean's poll of what features we want to see.
Yeah. And that just comes down to what features do people have that are in common with what those two guys want to do.
Yeah. I think it's going to somewhat affect the 100 and some open ticket requests as well.
Garfield.
That's probably where the poll will be from.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely needs some more usability features, more easy to understand. But once you do get it, it clicks pretty good, I think, once you get the hang of it.
For those of you on the call that have used the manual, I'm one of the main guys on the manual. What do you want to see in the user manual, if anything? I'm kind of rewriting the layers section because that seems to get a lot of questions and people not understanding that or want some more information.
Yeah, the layers thing is what got me to begin with, because in one part of it, it renders one direction, and then another part of it, it renders a different direction.
Oh, so on a model, it renders bottom to top, but in your sequence, all models render top to bottom. I follow you there.
Yeah. But once you get the hang of it, it's no big deal. You know how to lay it out.
Yep.
The good thing about X-Lights is it kind of works like HLS in the way that you don't have to worry about exact numbers of pixels and things like that. You can change it on the fly, and it doesn't change how it looks.
Spooky.
So, David, when you get those components in and you want to show off, definitely come in here and show off. Is he still in?
Yeah, on the differential and the receiver boards.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that those are going to be a slam dunk. Really, there's nothing really going on with those that are, and mainly I just have to get off my rear end and send the files out and get them back. I could build those boards in house for the the first initial boards.
Right.
Well, I built the F-16 V2s, 20 of them originally by hand.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's when I knew that, hey, you know what? No one's going to want to build these things. Yeah, because the surface mount parts, and I have a little fish pump that I use to pick up parts and put them in place, and the stencils. It just was. After I built those 20, I said I got to find somebody to build these things. But then that's what made it marketable, though, because once I did find someone that could build them and they were priced pretty reasonable, it was like, okay, it was on, and that's when they was able to go out to the masses. But it was very hard build. But I'll build those boards and we'll make a video, and I'm sure we're going to get, whatever, a couple 100 feet or 100 feet. Sean's saying 300 feet, but I don't know. Who's, other than James, who's got like 2 acres or whatever, however big that property is. I mean, how many people are going 300 feet anyway to hit an element?
Well, we're working with a group right now, and they've got a 36-acre facility that they want to do a display in. Not necessarily the whole thing, but it's a park that's 36 acres. So there might be some spreading out, if you will, that's needed. So,
yeah, that's true.
We'll see. Just saying.
Yeah. I don't know what the price point is, too, on these things. I don't know. It depends how many you sell or whatever, but the one board had the receivers had a lot more parts than I expected. With all the connectors and everything, I think it came out to be like $11-12 in parts. So I don't know. But you figure they could do 4 strings, but I know the Advantech's only about $10 a board, but they only have 2 connectors. They don't have 4 connectors, and they only have 2 fuses, which means they only have 2 fuse blocks. So, and they're fused at 7 amps, so you could do 3.5 amps per string. But I'm putting 4 connectors, 4 fuses. So I think they came like at $10, but I wasn't looking at quantity pricing either. I was just looking at what it cost to build one if you were to buy the parts, as like a kit or whatever. It was
Well,
it was like $11.
It needs to be the 4 outputs. I know you and I kind of talked about it, but I think it needs to stay the 4 outputs just because of the Cat5 cable. Using the 4 pair, it's just efficiency. But
well, they have.
You finished up
they still do 4 outputs, but do you have the data shared? So the data, how we are only using the 3 pins on the 4-pin connector. They use all 4, and data 1 and data 2's on the clock. But so in order to go out to the 4 strings, 2 of the strings need to share the same connector for the data in the ground. For the power in the ground, and then they would each get their own clock off one of those pins. One's off the clock, one's off the data, but they're definitely sharing the power of that connector. So I agree, you need 4 connectors and you need 4 fuses. That adds a little bit more to the cost. I don't think that these receivers are going to be going for $10 a piece like theirs are. I don't even know how they're making any money off that, to tell you the truth.
I don't think that's a big deal. I really don't think that's a deal breaker
I think
at all.
it's probably going to be in the $15 to $20 range per receiver, but that'll still be cheap. Yeah, still be pretty cheap. And the receiver, the transmitter, I'm thinking somewhere between $60 and $75, depending on the numbers that I've worked on. I don't know if that's a make or break, but I think that's what the um, um, this expansion board. Do you have any comment, Kevin, on whether that seems reasonable? I busted him.
He said he had to step away.
Well, I think my opinion on that is, the cost of the expansion board and 4 of the receivers is still going to be less than buying a whole nother controller.
Yeah.
I think it's still, you can still spread out. Plus, it's the convenience of being centrally located together. It's one data cable, E131 connection going to it.
Just figuring the string in one spot. You still got all the virtual string capability and all that. It comes with the V2.
Yep. So
yeah,
I think you're gonna be okay on your price points. Around 70 or so for the expansion board, and then $15-20 for the receivers. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, and we'll play with the numbers and we'll see. But there comes a point where, when anytime you sell something, you got to package it, ship it. All that takes time. Orders, printing out the order, the label. I mean, you can't do it for nothing. So.
Nope.
If it gets to that point where it has to be done for nothing, at that point I'll just run co-ops out of Falcon Christmas, and somebody else, some poor co-op will,
Yeah.
If it gets to that point, I don't know yet. I have to see. Obviously, quantity has a lot to do with it. How many you're going to actually make and sell.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's get them out there and get a couple. At least get some so we can play with it and get them tested.
Well, I'll send it off because it's a simple board. I'll send it off in the next couple days, maybe week, and usually it's a 10-day turnaround if I get it expedited. So.
Right. Are you good with the size of them as far as you're making it fit in the TA200 and stuff like that?
Yeah, the size was not a problem, and I think it's going to fit nicely. In fact, I had a lot of room. I mean, it wasn't like I was cramped for room or nothing. The routing was really easy. And we could even.
I mean, were you done with the Gerber file for the PCB? I mean, you know why I'm asking. It's for the adapter plate, but
I did. I wasn't able to do it exactly the same. Obviously the spacing is the same. I'll get that file to you. There is a small change. It seems like the board shifted up a little bit compared to the other expansion, mainly just to make it. The connectors fit better on the other one. So I'll send it over to you to maybe you can take a look at it, and if it seems like it'll fit on there, then we'll go with it. If not, I can maybe make a modification. Hopefully it works out. Though.
Okay.
I'll over to you. It seems like the whole pattern kind of the holes shifted down on the expansion. If that makes sense. They were kind of more towards the top. Now they kind of shifted more towards the bottom. So I think the expansion board probably could get mounted upside down, and it'd be the same. Or if we could shift the expansion board up, then it probably. But I'll send that over because I wouldn't mind getting the plates. I have a good plate order for you coming.
All right. Yeah. Give me that, and I can add it to it. And we can get a test batch of them run up, and I'll send it over to you.
Sure.
We'll go from there.
Thanks, man.
Okay. No problem. Cool. Well, guys, I got to run.
Thanks,
I got to
James.
go swap some material. Hey, man, anytime. Like I said, any of y'all, if y'all need anything, feel free to email me. Let me know. We're always willing to help. We're going to have fun this year, that's for sure. So.
All right, well, see you.
All right, man. Talk to y'all later.
Well, Steve, I think I'm going to take off and tell Kevin I said goodbye. Everybody else, Scott, Dave, Jerry, David W., have a good evening.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you coming.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, I'm out too. Have a good night, everybody.